Hey there, Black Swamp fam. Today we're taking a break from our regularly scheduled short-form video content to bring you a long-form conversation with Raynor Carroll, longtime BSP artist and the co-founder of ABOP, the Alliance for Black Orchestral Percussionists. ABOP is a mentorship program that guides student percussionists through expert instruction and holistic teaching that prepares these protégés to be responsible young adults in addition to being fantastic musicians. Raynor's history as the principal percussionist for the LA Phil has given him professional experience and a unique perspective to share with these protégés, showing them the doors to opportunities he wished he himself had as a student. We start the conversation by talking about ABOP's recent success, with two protégés performing in the Musicians at Play program at Warner Brothers Studios in Hollywood. We dive into what mentorship and success look like for these budding performers, barriers to representation, some gear, and audition challenges that students everywhere are wrestling with. This was an awesome conversation. Raynor is a longtime friend and supporter of Black Swamp Percussion, and we hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did.
Really, congratulations on the Musicians at Play program. I think this is like 3 or 4 year streak for your protégés, right? Alexa and London both had an opportunity to perform and or record at the Eastwood scoring stage. It's relatively new to me and maybe some of our viewers and listeners. Can you expand on that a little bit, like what that opportunity is and what that means?
Yeah, it started by Musicians at Play, a nonprofit that saw a lack of diversity in the studios in Hollywood, as in the musicians particularly, and thought what they might do is to have a youth orchestra that is focused on training them and getting the live experience of studio work, which is, very different from what we do in the orchestra, as in it's 90% sight reading. So, the playing is different because there's an engineer and it's all mic'd and it's recorded sound. So it really is a different art to it. So anyway, they started this like 5 years ago with having an orchestra every year that would first rehearse cues from specific movies, whether it's John Williams, E.T., The Mandalorian, to some of the video game music, which is obviously very popular with, I would say, more so the younger folk.
We have a little micro gaming community here at Black Swamp Percussion. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been happening for 5 years, and ABOP has had at least 2 protégés in it every year since the second year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And, with your career with the LA Phil, the highest level of performance, you're essentially demystifying that path to the stage for your protégés and your students. Are there more professional bits or information that you kind of pass along to your protégés, more than just, playing right notes and rhythms that help give them the confidence walking into Warner Brothers studio, for example, to have that opportunity?
Being a fantastic musician doesn't make you a fantastic person. So we try to make them whole, as in responsible young adults that can carry forth through life in whatever they do. Because as we know, in the music industry, there's no guarantees. Ideally, we want to have players in orchestras or players doing the studio work and doing the gigs. But, along that way, and maybe they will end up, but along that way, they probably will have to interact with people in other ways, whether, obviously you've got to interact with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your students at school with you. So we try to help in that way, in helping them mature and develop to be responsible, reliable, dependable. When I was in the Phil and hiring extra players, would I hire you? Do you show up on time? Are you there early?
For sure.
Do you help others with their setup? Are you just coming in just in time for you to set up and play your part? But it's holistically, it's about the section. It's not just about what you do, but how can you complement the others? And that carries through, like I say, through everything I feel we do in life.
I mean, have you seen that as an impact, I guess, on your protégés, like that sort of holistic approach?
Absolutely. I see it every day, every time I talk with them, meet with them, it's a process, because there's so many facets to it. And like I say, one thing about music has to do with life, whether it's learning a schedule and being able to stick to the schedule
Mhm.
of whether practicing or going to rehearsals or whatever. We have some success stories. A couple of our proteges recently, at the end of last school year, they were accepted to their college of choices,
Oh,
and we
nice. Yeah.
think that has a lot to do with it. You know, a lot of what we do is to prepare them for the next level, whether they're in high school to do their college audition, whether they're in college, whether to do grad school audition, you know. And that
Yeah.
is a big thing, you know, giving them the confidence because they have the experience now of working with one of our mentors at a high
Yeah.
level and having the understanding that, you know, this is what it takes and it is hard work. There's plenty of average players out there. Do you want to be another average player? Like, no.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this is what it's going to take. You're going to have to do more than your colleague typically does.
As a black percussionist, what would you say the invisible barriers to being a black percussionist to the average concert goer or even another concert performer might not fully realize or understand?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would just include percussionists as in a black orchestral percussionist. I just don't think we get the support because a lot of times, and not all, because there are many folks that are very supportive of what we do. Thank goodness, you know. But I think we do run across this that, oh, just looking at you, we see you as a black person. We don't get included, let's say, in some conversations. We get overlooked for opportunities like mentorship, training, and jobs. I mean, the idea is that this is not something that blacks do. We
Hmm.
don't go into symphonic orchestral music, but of
Sure.
course we do, you know, like just
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
like anything else. Now, the numbers aren't there. We aren't in the orchestras, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. But
Yeah.
just because someone is black does not mean that they cannot do this, that, or the other. And so I would say that's the number one thing that perhaps does not get said.
Yeah.
And what I would say, one way to help it is just start a conversation. You see somebody, let's again talking from the audience, and let's say they're leaving the concert and they see one of the black percussionists walking to their car. Say, hey, you know, I really enjoyed that performance and blah, blah, blah. It just get the conversation going, and you
Sure.
will realize that they're another musician on stage, you know, probably
Yeah.
no different except in their skin color.
I mean, I've had similar conversations with Josh Jones in the past. You know, one of his comments that really stuck to me was in his case, he had to work 2 or 3 times harder. Even though he's 2 or 3 times more talented, he had to put in that much more work to essentially be viewed at the same level. So that was worth having a conversation about and hearing more about with him. So in the next 5, 10 years, where do you kind of see the rosters, or what do you hope to see, I guess, as a direct result of your work with ABOP in larger orchestras in the future?
I would love to see more black musicians in total, of course, black percussionists in the
Hmm.
orchestras in 5 or 10 years. I'd love to see it in 2 or 3 years, but it is
Yeah.
a long process. Just as if you study violin, if you start at 5, you have a great advantage over a student that starts, let's say, when they're 12, because
Hmm.
the artistic level that is needed in professional orchestras and being as competitive as they are these days, it takes a lot of years. It takes a lot of training. And of
Yeah.
course, everyone doesn't make it. But I would say, you know, starting out as young as possible. And I'd love to see in 10 years, many black percussionists filling some of these jobs.
Can you kind of talk about the general age of your proteges? I mean, I think they're mostly upper high school or college level percussionists. And then do you have a program or do you have concept or ideas to reach younger percussionists?
Our proteges range in age from 15 to 26
Mhm.
currently.
Okay.
So we have one in high school. Most of them are in undergrad work, and then a few have graduated. So almost every age, every level. I think most teachers know this is that every student is different.
Mhm.
So, how you connect, approach with the mentorship and the music side, you have to be very open because there are certain students that really take to listening to what you say.
Mhm.
Others, you have to show them. but most of them
Yeah.
these days learn by watching a video, a YouTube video. As you know, anybody can post a video, and whether it's, I don't want to say right or wrong, or whether it's the path I would like them to go to when they see, let's say, someone play Porgy and Bess, is not necessarily the path I'd like to see them go. So having that realization is very important. It's an
Yeah.
awakening thing, and it's hard to get them away from, number one, their phones.
Yeah.
The problem is that the phone is not a person. It's not human. It's not an orchestra. You need to go to concerts. You need to do your private study with the
Mhm.
teacher. Great. And you need to do your practicing, but you need to play in an ensemble. You cannot learn about the Beethoven symphonies as well as you can on stage actually playing them. So
Yeah.
that I think is very much lacking. And this may get to something else you may ask. What is my recommendation to young folks auditioning? You're usually overqualified with technique.
Yeah.
And that's a
Interesting.
problem. They're lacking in musicianship and expressiveness. And
Yeah.
I again relate that to this immediate gratification from a phone giving you all these answers and wanting to play this way. You cannot get a lot of that from the electronics. You can, I don't want to say only, but it's really, really playing in an ensemble. There's
Yeah.
no beating that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely a connection between people, live performance, and being in the same place at the same time. We talk about social media. You don't know how many times somebody pressed record to play Porgy and Bess before they got it the way they wanted it to be posted. Yeah, there's this false curation of social media that I think is important.
I'm glad I'm not a kid now.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah.
But
Well. Yeah.
but Tim, on the other side, I wish I had an ABOP when I was going through school,
Yeah. That's a good
an
point.
organization that will help me, guide me, not only musically, like we said, but in all areas. And, one of the things we do is we assist with instruments and mallets and, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, and these opportunities to play in the community, which I did myself, but it would have helped to have. And I think I was fortunate. I had Mitchell Peters, the principal
Oh,
of the
nice.
LA
Yeah.
Phil, that I studied
Yeah.
with, and he became my mentor. And it was nothing we ever said. I never said you're my mentor, or he never
Yeah.
said now I'm going to mentor you. We just developed this relationship, and this is one thing I did that I see most of the students don't do. I hounded him with questions,
Hmm.
How do
Yeah.
you do
Sure.
this? Why do you do that? What's it like working with this conductor? Why do you use this mallet? I think
Mhm.
a lot of them, the younger students, are used to, again, seeing these things on their phone. That way they
Mhm.
don't question them. But
Yeah.
I, in our lessons, I always say I have to give you a reason why I ask you to do something. It shouldn't just be use this mallet or play
Mhm.
this phrase this way. There should be some understanding behind it, why to do this,
Yeah.
why to do it that way. And again, I think they're kind of lacking in that way, in the creativity and using their minds for themselves.
You've mentioned the word mentor several times in your personal life, but also in relationship to ABOP specifically. Can you give some shout outs to like who's involved in ABOP as a mentor? And then also logistically, like how does that work? I mean, not everybody's in the same space at the same time. So I know you have virtual sessions or, maybe you do have some in-person events and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about who's involved and then how logistically the program works?
We have three other mentors right now. One is Terry McKinney. He's the principal of Baton Rouge Orchestra.
Hmm.
Also, we have Terrell Moss, who's a Cleveland based freelance percussionist, principal in a couple of smaller orchestras there. And then we have Wesley Sumter, who is one of the
Oh, right.
new assistant principal percussionist in the LA Phil. We don't have enough mentors. We need more because, I mean, we have more proteges than we have
Right.
mentors. So, one thing we have to do it by Zoom, and that's not the best, but I guess it could be worse. We'd have no connection. So that's how we get around the geographical situation, because we're not going to have a mentor in every city where there is a student at this point, maybe eventually.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a big obstacle of doing it electronically over Zoom.
Sure.
With a few workarounds, it's happening. So that's basically how we go about that.
What is the most common mistake you see young percussionists make?
They've got great technique, but they're not playing musically. The thing I would say, and I think just about everyone else that's listening on the panel, of course, the music director also would say, when you're playing your audition, I want to hear the orchestra, which maybe sounds odd or abstract, but
Mm,
it's in
sure.
reality, your playing, your phrasing, your dynamics, how you express the music
Yeah.
can really reflect that passage that you're playing. If it doesn't, it means probably you're playing exactly what's written dynamically. If there's no rallentando or anything, that's the way you're playing. And that's not music. You can add natural accents or emphasis into your playing instead of sounding like you're just reading a sheet of music and reading it exact, which is one step. That's the first step. But the next step is to interpret it. So
Yeah.
I think that's the number one thing, whether it's Porgy and Bess, I got to hear it to be exciting. This is Porgy's
Yeah.
entrance. Every time that little clip of that excerpt happens is when Porgy is on stage. And it
Yeah.
should be exciting.
Every time you say Porgy and Bess, I start sweating.
But that's my own past musical trauma. So
If you could give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice about the orchestral world, what do you think that might be?
Oh, that's easy. I'd just say go for it. It's an amazing career. You will not believe how fantastic a career this is. Now, that's
yeah.
if you love music. If you love, I would say all styles, not just classical, then it's just going to be the ride of your life, whether it's having colleagues that are, amongst the best, the conductors, the soloists, just the total package is just amazing. So just go for it.
ABOP protege, could you condense what that means into 3 or 4 words?
They have to be teachable. They
Yeah.
need to be curious, and this needs to be their passion. So teachable,
Yeah.
curious, and passionate about what they do.
How does having the right tools or gear play into the confidence of a student who might not have access to professional instruments in the past?
To me, obviously, the higher the level you get, whether it's going from middle school to high school to college to grad school to the professional world, you need to start collecting a variety of tambourines, a variety of triangles, snare drums, cymbals, all of it, because your music that you're going to be playing is going to get more diverse, as in different styles. And one instrument does not necessarily do it, in my mind. A good example is a snare drum. If you've got a part, let's say a Scheherazade, which is famous for very soft, delicate, difficult passages, you
Yeah. I'm
need.
sweating again now. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, that was
No,
unintended.
those days are over. So
Yeah, but you need something that's going to speak very well at a soft dynamic, which is usually a narrow, shallow drum. And then the opposite end, I would say, pretty much, is Shostakovich. The most asked for audition excerpt from him is the Shostakovich 10th Symphony, second movement. Don't use your same piccolo on that. You need a
Yeah,
deep,
right. Yeah.
dark, heavy sound. So use a 6.5 or whatever, a deeper drum that gets a different sound. So, like I say, when you rise to this level, you need to have a variety of instruments, and your gear is so important because that's what people identify you with.
Yeah.
Conductors, contractors, and your colleagues in the orchestra, they don't know that this is this drum or this pair of cymbals, 16s versus 20s. All they know is the sound that you create. So you got to be careful. That becomes your identity. If you're playing someone else's cymbals and they're really dead, they're going to say, wow, this person really doesn't get a very resonant sound on the cymbals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your gear is so important. I always think with things that ring, like cymbals, triangle, it's better to have one that rings too much than one that does not ring enough, because
Yeah.
when you need that tone and quality, and if it doesn't ring very much, it's not there. The opposite is true. If it rings a lot, which is great, you can mute it a little bit, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, you can always take away, but you can never add. That's that in the manufacturing world. Yeah, that's what we say. So what's coming up for ABOP?
The next thing that's happening for us is our annual intensive, the ABOP in LA. And that's a yearly week that we have together where all the proteges get together from across the country and spend a week together in LA doing workshops, master classes, rehearsals, and we end it with a performance. Usually the first half is just all percussion ensemble. Second half, we usually pair up with the Inner City Youth Orchestra and do repertoire that features percussion. One piece that we did last year was the Ginastera Estancia Suite, which is a fantastic piece and lots of fun for percussionists. I think it was 7-8 percussionists in that. So that's what's coming up immediately. Then right after that, sometime mid-August, we'll be joining the Montclair Jazz Festival as a part of the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. And we don't have specifics on that yet, but we'll be pairing up with the festival itself in Montclair, New Jersey.
So if you're playing with a youth orchestra and your proteges are involved, do they have an opportunity to mentor percussionists in a youth orchestra? Like, is there sort of a relationship like that? Like, you're basically mentoring them to mentor?
Yes, absolutely. When we pair up with whatever organization and there are younger players, our proteges act as the mentors to them. And that to me is the ideal situation.
Final question, how can someone help support ABOP? You know, maybe a non-percussionist that's not familiar or a music lover, someone like that. How can they help support your efforts with ABOP?
You know, I would say just support live music, support classical music. If you happen to see a Black musician, just tell them what you think. I hope it was a good performance. If you happen to see a Black percussionist, say, hey, you did a great job, and ask them questions about who they study with. It's just to start, again, that conversation that it makes them feel like a person.
Sure.
That might sound odd, but sometimes we're so isolated and by ourselves that just having that conversation is such a great thing. So that's an easy thing.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate you having a conversation with us, Raynor. It's been an honor and pleasure. I know you've been a supporter of Black Swan Percussion since Eric's sort of very early days, and that's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. And like you said, Eric and I go way back to the beginnings.
For sure.
And Eric and you, the whole organization has been so helpful for ABOP. And I have to tell you, from our proteges to the mentors, we all really appreciate it. It really does make a difference in what we're doing. So much appreciated.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Raynor. It was great talking to you.
Same here. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.